otherwise, that even though the Beis Hamikdash had Kedusha in the times of the Beis Hamikdash, nevertheless, once there was a Churban, the Kedusha sort of departed and there's no more Kedusha, and therefore there's no prohibition. Apparently, that's what the Rebbe said. He had saying, there's no Kaddish if you walk into the Azara. Now, on the sheet of the Rebbe itself, there are three opinions. There are some who understand this Rebbe to mean that it's only a Yisur Kaddish that there isn't. That's what's mashma from the Rebbe. It says that by Kaddish, but it's still also Midiraisa. That's one way of the sheet of the Rebbe. The second one says that there's no Yisur Midiraisa, but there's still an Yisur Midirabanan. So of course not Kaddish, but it's not even the Rais, only the Rabbanan. And there's a third sheet that holds that when the Rebbe says in by Kaddish means that it's mutar legamri. That not only that there's no Kaddish, there's no Yisur the Rais and there's no Yisur the Rabbanan. You're allowed to walk anywhere on the Harabayis, and the Zara, and the Kodesh, and Kodesh Kadashim. That's what one view says in the sheet of the Rebbe. Now, interestingly enough, although the Rambam is more machmir when it comes to the Kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash, nevertheless, when it comes to the idea of bringing Karbanis nowadays, the Rambam will be more makil, that we have the ability, so to speak, of bringing Karbanis because the Kedusha is still there. Mashenk in the Ravid, if you hold like the Ravid who says that it's mutar legamri, that there's no Kedusha whatsoever in the Harabayis and in the Beis Hamikdash, so therefore there's no way of bringing Karbanis because the Kedusha left. So that's one way that we have a chumrah in the Rambam in regards to the Kedusha of the Harabayis, of the Azara, that you can't walk there. Mashenkin, you could bring Karbanis, and the Ravid would hold the opposite if you hold that he holds them that it's mutar. And the Maisa, we hold like both chumras that Rabbi Akiva brings, that even though one holds like this, and we can maybe pick and choose, the Rabbi Akiva says that we hold like both chumras, that we're chomer like the Rambam, that you should not walk into certain areas in the Azara and the Beis Hamikdash because of its Kedusha, and nevertheless at the same time we say that we cannot be makrid Karbanis because we are choishish for the shit of the Rebbe that the Kedusha departed and you can't bring Karbanis anymore nowadays. Now regardless, no matter how you define shit as a Rebbe, if it's only the Reise without a Kaddish, only with the Rabbanon or Mutar Legamre, Lemaise, most of the Chreinim hold like the Rambam, that the Kedusha is still there nowadays, and therefore there is a prohibition of walking into certain areas of the Harabayis, the Azar, as we will see. And there's still an issue of Kaddish, according to most Achreinim, that's how they hold, like the Rambam, that there's a few of Kaddish to walk in the Azara. So let's talk about where exactly the Isur applies. So the Gemara in Zvachim explains that the Chiyuv Minatera, a Chiyuv Kaddish to walk into Beis Hamikdash, that for Tomei Meis to walk in the Beis Hamikdash applies only in the Azara, and the Gemara explains that it's the area that it's 187 by 135 amis, like it's brought down in the Second Midas. That was the measurement of the Azara. That's where the Chiyuv Kaddish applies, but it doesn't apply anywhere else. So that's what the Gemara Zvachim says, and I should explain there how it's part of only the inside, not the outside. But that's the Malkim Azara, 187 and 135, that's how it's in the Second Midas. That's how also the Rambam brings in Abchira. Elamai, that the Chachamim added, they extended an Isur, that even though Tmei Minatoid is only forbidden in the Azara, the Chachamim added that even in the Ezras Nashim, and even in part of the Harabayis, up until the Chel, you know that they had a Selig around the Beis Hamikdash, and after that we still had the Chel before you leave Harabayis. So the Chachamim extended the Isur of Minatoid, that a Tmei Meis cannot walk into the Azara. There's also Isur the Rabbanan, that a Tmei Meis cannot walk in the Ezras Nashim, and not even outside of the Beis Hamikdash, on the area of the Harabayis, which was inside the Chayv. That's also included in the Yisud Rabbanon. And so the Rambam Paskins in Ilchos Beis Hamikdash, Ilchos Bias Hamikdash, in Perek Gimel, he says there halacha test, Tmei Meis, Oitivulyoim, Shenichnas Lezras Nashim, or Afal Pi Shein Eloike, Maki Noise Makas Mardos. He says that you give them Makas Mardos because it's only Yisud Rabbanon for Tmei Meis to walk into the Ezras Nashim, or right outside the Beis Hamikdash, before going out of the Chim. So how does this work? So basically it's based on the machnes that we had in the Midbar. So it's brought on the Chumash. Rashi explained that there were three machnes. There was machne Shechina, machne Levi, and machne Yisrael. Machne Shechina is basically where the Mishkan was situated. Anywhere between the Kali and Mishkan is called machne Shechina, where the Levim were the camp was machne Levi, and where the Shvatim was machne Yisrael. And there's the same thing applies also into the Beis Hamikdash map. The same different categories of machnas apply. So the Azara is considered machna Shechina. Outside of the Azara and the whole Harabayis is considered machna Levia, and outside of the Harabayis, the whole Yerushalayim, the Rambam explains from the beginning of Yerushalayim, the Rambam brings in the Halachos, that it's considered Machne Israel. And it's brought down in Rashi and Chumash. Rambam is based on Antiseptic that speaks about this comparison that we compare the Machnes in the Midbar with the Machnes in the Harabais and the Beis Hamikdash. And then Rambam also adds there that in Perek Zayin that with the Achel Ezas Anoshim Ali Yisrael Beis Shalom there was also sort of a different in categories. Even though in the Midbar there's only three Machnes, when it comes to the Beis Hamikdash, as we explained, there's also a different kedusha between the Ezas Anoshim and right outside the Beis Hamikdash, and over the Chel, while it's in the Harabais, there's a different of kedusha. And the halacha is in the Chumash that the tzorua, the person who's a metzora, he's not allowed to be even in Machne Yisrael. He has to be in all the three Machnes. A zav is allowed to stay in Machne Yisrael, but he cannot go in Machne Leviyah. And a tamid nefesh, a tmei can even be in Machne Leviyah. The only place that he's not allowed to go is into the Chatzar HaMishkan, into the Machne Shechina. And so does the Mishnah bring in the first perek of Maseches Kelim all the darkness that there are between all the areas of the Beis Hamikdash and the Mishkan where a person is allowed to go or not. So the Maaseh, what comes out to us is that nowadays we don't have any. If you hold like the Rambam, the Kedusha still nowadays. There's no tzarua. We don't have that problem of mitzvah that it cannot be in Yerushalayim, but we do have tmei meis. Everybody's a tmei meis, and also the idea of zavim, and the zav is a nida. Nida is also about keri. So the Maaseh, the halacha would be according to the Rambam that for a tmei meis, like everybody, there's an isur midiraisa with a chiyuv kodesh to walk into the azara. That begins from Ezas Yisrael, Ezas Koyanim, and the Heichel, etc. And there's also an Isur Derabanan to walk also in the Ezas Nashim and in the Beis Hamikdash, right outside the Beis Hamikdash before you get to the Chel. And right outside the Chel, you are allowed to go if you're only a Tmei. But if you're Balkeri, if you're a Nido, you Ledes, all those things, you're not even allowed in the whole Harabais, only outside of the Harabais, that's where you're allowed to go. So that's what comes out according to the Rambam. Derech Agav, not only a tmei meis, but even a meis itself is allowed to go into those areas, except for the Machne Shechina, because it's brought down. The Moshe Rabbeinu in the beginning of Parshat the Shalach that when he brought the Atzmos Yosef Imoy, the Rambam explains in the Beis Hamikdash that the Vaikach Moshe Atzmos Yosef Imoy b'Machne Leviyah, that he was with him even in Machne Leviyah. So even a meis itself, not only a tmei meis, but even a corpse, you're allowed to bring it into Machne Leviyah. Up until before you enter Machne Shechina. So that's the Shittas Rambam. Now there comes the Captive Eperach, which was it's a well-known sefer by Ishtori Aparchi, which was a geographer, and he lived in the 14th century. And he says over there that not only does the Isur apply like the Rambam says, but the Isur for the Tmei Meis applies even for the whole Harabais. That's what he says. That it's not only in those areas of the Azara, B'deraisa, and outside the Ezras Nashim and up until the Chemid Rabbanon, but the whole Isur applies in the whole Harabais. Like we know it's 500 Ames by 500 Ames, it says in Masech Midas, and it's probably the most well-known measurement for the Beis Hamikdash. Everybody remembers 500 by 500. So that's what he says. Now it's not so clear from him if he was saying that this is the din, and if the din is even the Isur Kodesh. It's not so clear if he's saying that the whole Harabais is Isur Kodesh, or at least is the Isur Derabanan, that it extends to the whole Harabais. Or even then maybe he's just quoting what the people were practicing at the time, that the Bnei Yisrael were not allowed, when he says they were not allowed to enter Harabais, maybe he's just stating a fact that because of the Muslims or because of the local laws that they had at the time, maybe that's what happened, but it might not necessarily be the halacha. That's what some people claim, but that's what it says. Most people seem to say that he's referring to din, that's the halacha, regardless if it's Kaddish or not. There's an Isur, the minimum, the Midrabanan, that any Tmei Meis cannot enter the whole Harabais. So Bekitzer, the Shittas that Rambam holds, again, the Azar is Chiyuv Kodesh, Ezas Yisrael will be Midrabanan, Ezas Nashim will be Midrabanan, sorry, and right outside of this Midrash also up until the Chayil, Mashem Kida, and everything else in the Harabais, according to the Rambam, the Tmei is allowed to go up until you get to the Chayil. Mashem Kida, the Kappa will hold that you're not allowed to the whole Harabais, the whole area, you cannot enter. That's according to that's regarding a Tmei Meis. When it comes to a Balkari, a Nida, a Ledes, everybody agrees that there's an Isur that you cannot be in any area in the Harabais. Just Derech Aga, there are some records. There's a note from the Rambam that he mentions that he went up when he was in Eretz Yisrael, that he went up to Yerushalayim and he went up to daven in the Harabais. Some people say that it seems he went to a place to daven, and many people they seem to say that this indicates that the Rambam actually went up into the Harabais, of course, only in the area that the Rambam would hold that you're allowed to go, not in the Azar itself. But that's and there's also some other Rishonim. I believe there are some evidence that he went and they visited the Harabais. Now, Benegay putting into practice of where the Harabais is, because as we explained, the Harabais was 500 ames by 500 ames, and if you look today in the, if you check the map of the Temple Mount, is much larger than that. Some people claim that the extension that we have nowadays of the Harabais that used to be 500 by 500, now it's more like a rectangle, or a little bit different of a shape. It's not exactly a rectangle, but it's extended at least. So a lot of people say that it's because of Horus, that's what he extended, and he was the one who enlarged this original area. There's discussion if the Kedusha would also extend or not. But regardless, nowadays you see that the Temple Mount is much larger than the Harabais. The Harabais is 500 by 500 ames, which if you say that an amma is 48 centimeters, it will be 240 meters by 240 meters. And if you look today, the Temple Mount is about 460 meters by 300 meters. It's almost double, at least in the length. You can almost fit two original Harabais in the current Temple Mount as we have today. So yeah, so there are. I saw somebody published a video last week about a different discussion regarding the Harabais, and he mentioned that he found 13 different views of where exactly the Beis Hamikdash was located. So it's very hard to know exactly today. There are some main shittas. There are two main shittas. There's first the Shutta Radvaz, David ben Zimra, who claims that this is one of the main shittas, that he claims that the where they have now the Dome of the Rock is exactly the stone that they have there. It's exactly the Even Hashtia. So using computers, you can easily take the map of the Temple Mount and calculate where the Even Hashtia is. You put the map of the Beis Hamikdash according to some calculations, the map that they had, and then you can figure out where the Beis Hamikdash was located. You look at Maseches Midas. Once you know where the Kodesh HaKodashim was, you can calculate where the Azara was, where the Ezras Nashim was. Even the Harabais, the Rambam brings exactly how far the walls of the Beis Hamikdash was from each walls of the Harabais, so you can definitely find out where the Beis Hamikdash was located. I made an image. There are many you can find online, but just to give you a clue of how the proportion of what the red is the Temple Mount and the blue would be the Harabais according to the Radvaz. If you put the Kodesh HaKodashim exactly on top of where the Dome of the Rock is, you can see that there's a lot of room here outside of the Harabais that it's not necessarily Harabais according to Halacha. So that's one sheet of the Shutta Radvaz. Some claim that the stone, there is a stone in the Dome of the Rock, but that's not the Even Hashtia where the Kodesh HaKodashim was. That was actually where the Mizbeach was. So you have to move the Beis Hamikdash over 100 ames to the right. So then you have a different calculation, and then you have 11 other shittas who say that it was in a totally different place. And depending where you locate the Beis Hamikdash, you're going to end up having the map of the Harabais, which could be anywhere, mainly everywhere where the map of the Temple Mount is nowadays. Then you have other considerations you have to take other things you have to take into consideration is that even if you place the map exactly as it is, you can also put in different angles. Even though you can say that the Kodesh HaKodashim is exactly where the Even Hashtia was, even though the Radvaz already tells you exactly how far it is, but it could be that it was a little this way, a little that way. It's not exactly a rectangle as I mentioned before, so the angle might change. And number two, we don't know which amed to use. I mean, nowadays Lalacha we follow Chaim Noyad, but 48 centimeters. But who said maybe the Beis Hamikdash with 500 amed was much larger than that, and all the measurements are going to change. So that's another thing that you have to consider when applying Lemaisa where the Harabais was located. So Lemaisa, that's what the most poskim hold. Nowadays, the whole area of the Temple Mount is at least a Safek Kodesh, because we don't know exactly where the Azara is, according to the Rambam, and that's what most Rishonim hold, that the Isur Kodesh nowadays, even to walk into to any part of the Azara. So because we don't know exactly where the Beis Hamikdash is, so there's anywhere in the Temple Mount in the Safek Kodesh, and therefore you're not allowed to go in, as simple as it is. That's what overall the majority of Achronim and later poskim hold nowadays. Now, even if you would hold that you know exactly where the Beis Hamikdash is, there's still reasons to say that a person should not walk into the Harabais. There are many reasons brought down. The number one, even if you allow some people to go, you have to remember that the Harabais itself, a Baal Keri cannot go. So even if a Tamei Meis can go into certain areas outside of the Harabais, but a Baal Keri will not be able to go, and you have to go to the Mikvah. You have to go. There's many halachos that you have to follow. So You have to, if you allow some people to go, many people would go without these preparations. You have to remove your shoes. You can't go with money. There's also something called Meir Mikdash. So if you allow some people to go, many people will not follow these rules. That's one reason why we even if you know where exactly is, you should not allow people to go. And it's also very sad that these people are not going to be careful where to walk. If you tell them they can walk this way and this way, it's like a minefield. Not everybody's going to be careful not to walk in certain areas. The tefillah has to be minat Torah, has to be like a kosher mikveh for women, and they have to make sure to remove any chatzitza. So that's another reason why we should not allow people to go to the habayis. And also the chashash of zavim in man, and in man mainly regarding women, there's chashash of nida, there's chashash of yeledes or zava even. Nida nowadays, every single woman is considered nida, so nobody goes to the mikvah, so it will be very problematic. Now, just as a piece of information, there are some very, very few poskim in Eretz Yisrael who do allow people to go on harabayis. We can call them poskim zmaneinu, who do permit outside the chel. So they somehow have their map of where you can walk, that it's outside the chel. Tmei meis can go in, but you have to do tevel again, like I mentioned. There's many halachas they have to follow. Your tevel, you can go right away. You don't have to wait for Harif Shemesh, because even a Tvul Yom can go in those areas. And there's also many government laws that you have to keep. There's certain hours, certain days that you can go in. There's certain things that you might try and you might go, like when you could daven, when you can go, etc. But we're not going to get into that. Just to note that there's a lot of Meir Mikdash. Rambam has a whole parak to speak about this. That even the Ravid holds that nowadays, even though there's no kedusha, there's still the lot of Meir Mikdash. There's no kedusha, but there's still the lot of Meir Mikdash. So even the Ravid would hold that you have to follow those rules, even if there wasn't any kedusha nowadays in the Hazara, like we mentioned before. Now, just to mention quickly, there's some that hold that claim that nowadays maybe there's perhaps in the Shalish Regalim there's a mitzvah to go there and bring karbanis, and they claim that there's a mitzvah to go into the harabayis, into the Beis Hamikdash and makir karbanis, but that's very incorrect for two reasons. Number one, the whole mitzvah of going to the Beis Hamikdash to bring karbanis is to go into the Azara, and as we mentioned, the Rama holds that it's a Yisur Kares, and even according to the Ravid, it's either Yisur Derais or Yisur Derabanan. Only one shita holds it's mutar. That's number one, and you can't go into the Zara, so there's no point of going. And number two, even if you would say that you follow the Ravid and it's mutar to go, you're going there and you're not bringing in a carbon, because the Ravid holds that you cannot bring a carbon nowadays. So there's a lav of loyal panay rekom, the Shalish Regalim. You're going there and you're going to do a lav, so there's no point of being mekayim and iser when you're going to do a lav. So it's really a shvach argument to say that nowadays in the Shalish Regalim we should go. Finally, there's some other discussion on this topic, such as politically, what as Yidden, what should we do regarding who should be there, who should be allowed to be there. I think the government has some authority in there, and what about the IDFs, etc. I'm not going to get into that. There's also the shaila if you're allowed to fly over the Azara or certain parts of the Beis Hamikdash, if you want to, for whatever reason, fly over that thing. If the Avid of the Azara is considered, if there's an Isser of Knisa there. And then there's another thing that's very negative to us is if you're allowed to touch the Koisel Amaravi, because many people, there's a machlokes if the Koisel is the wall of the Azara, or if it's the wall of the Harabais. So some people the people that hold that it's the wall of the Azara, they say that you cannot touch the wall of the Koisel, you can't enter notes into it. So what's the maskana? So the machlokes is a poskim on the matter, and most poskim hold that you're allowed to. There's no prohibition. Just a few poskim say that you should avoid, but most poskim say it's okay to touch, to enter things in it. And interestingly enough, it's brought down in Sefer Sichas that the Frierdiker Rebbe, when he visited Eretz Yisrael Tafresh Peites, so he was there and he was by the Koisel right after Daven Mincha. So he asked one of the locals there if there was a minute to kiss the Koisel, and he said yes. When he answered in the affirmative, so it's brought down that the Frierdiker Rebbe touched and kissed the Koisel. And it's also brought down in the Kashas and some Gilunis that there was many Gedolei Yisrael that came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe would inquire very often about this halacha, this shaila in halacha, if you're allowed to touch or enter notes into the Koisel, if yes or not, and he would ask the Moedim of good, etc., what the halacha is, what their noheg, etc. And it's brought down the one time the Rebbe, somebody asked the Rebbe if you're allowed to put enter notes into the Koisel, and the Rebbe said yes, but we should do it with a stick. You shouldn't do it directly with your hand. That's what's recorded. Just wanted to conclude with another letter that's brought down from the Rebbe, and they publish here in the notes in the Suchah Mנחem. Interestingly, though, it comes from Beis Chayenu, was published in one of the Gilenis on Tafshin Aleph. but they have two mistakes here. One, they put the wrong page, and then number two, it says over there that it's a minor that the Rebbe answered to somebody who asked that he was thinking about going to the Harabais. But if you look in the original, it says that he did go up to the Harabais, and the Rebbe answers to him as follows: Vein was Ballas, Mashenki, Balia Bahrabai, so if the border of Maki Mutter Ali, or asking now. So that is saying that going up to the Harabais, as we explained, there's many Ballas, there's many limitations of where, how you can go, there's many problems. Mashenki, learning the Lachas of Harabais, and learning the Hilchas of Bechira, there's no Ballas into that, so we should do that, and maybe Zoicha that we'll have Mashiach, and as it says in the Eder Yecheskel, that the Harabais when Mashiach comes will be 36 times larger. It's going to be Rashi explains in the Yecheskel that it's going to be 3,000 ames by 3,000 ames. Maybe Zoicha that should be a big revelation.
Mr. Shem, following Tfilas Aviv, there will be a seal and Ruach.